Oh boy, May 13th, and we're going to be talking about wine. Can you beat that, John McKay?
Probably not.
Nah, you can't. You know, there's a lot of rain out there. We're going to hear a little bit later from Monty Webb, meteorologist at KNDU, how much we've gotten, but I love this rain. You know, any other time, if it wasn't a drought, I might be saying go away, but not today.
Well, as long as it doesn't fall in a day when we have baseball practice. It can rain all at once.
That is just, you know, everything in your world is all about, is it going to be okay for youth baseball, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm coaching my daughter's team in KN, and so I don't want the kids out there sliding in the mud.
Oh boy, that's, you know, that's really.
But that's what shout sticks are for.
Yeah, shout sticks.
Yeah, the stain stick. You use it to get the stains out of the uniforms. I've learned how to do all that kind of
Oh
stuff.
my gosh, you're really getting good at that. No, we don't want anyone falling, because, you know, I fell over the weekend, and I'm going to spend 6 weeks learning all about the things that you can and cannot do with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even bother trying to do the contacts today. I'm going to go ahead and probably wear my glasses a lot, because that's quite an adventure. But, you know, my hair, John, my hair.
Yeah, the everyday things you take for granted. A few minutes yesterday after the show, I took about 30 seconds, and for the heck of it, I tried to write something with my right hand.
Did
It
you?
looked like cave
Yeah.
markings, so
Yes.
I empathize. It
Yes.
is not fun.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about, what are we going to talk about today? Because we are going to talk about wine, and we brought in somebody today who writes about wine for a living, and so of course you have to taste a lot of wine too. Andy Perdue, is that right?
That's right. You gotta drink a lot of wine.
You got to drink a lot of wine to know what's going on. All right, well, Andy has a company. It's called Great Northwest Wines, is that right?
That's right.
Well, set us up, first of all. What is Great Northwest Wines? What do you do?
So Great Northwest Wine, we write about wine, we taste a lot of wine, we run wine competitions, we write books, we publish quite a bit. So you'll see our stuff in papers throughout the Pacific Northwest.
And your partner, who is not here today?
Yeah, Eric Dagerman. Eric's over in Seattle. He's as we like to say, he's on assignment, doing a little off-site market research, as we like to say. He's tasting wine over in Seattle.
Oh, wow, good for him. All right, and he missed out on this great interview,
He
but
did.
you'll fill in great. One of my first questions has to do with, what is it about Eastern Washington that wine has just mushroomed in this significant industry? What is special about us over here?
Well, Eastern Washington is an arid place, as we know, because we've all lived here for a while. Not a lot of rainfall, a lot of sunshine. We're pretty far north. We're on the same latitude as Bordeaux and Burgundy in France.
Oh.
A lot of the great wine-producing areas of Spain and Germany, all of those are on the same latitude. Whereas California is on a southerly latitude, a little more southern than us, the same latitude as, say, Algeria and Bangladesh. And so we're really positioned to make world-class wine. California makes world-class wine despite its handicap of being that far south.
Mm-hmm. What about irrigation? How does that affect? Does that make us extra special?
Well, it allows us to grow things. If not for irrigation from the various river systems, we wouldn't have any agriculture here in Eastern Washington. It would probably be a lot of cattle country, I suspect. But that irrigation gives growers kind of deity-like control. You know, they drip, drip, drip onto the vines exactly the amount of water that those vines need, and it gives them a lot of control over making really world-class wine grapes.
Well, you know, what's interesting to me is that we have wineries in the Seattle area, on the west coast of Washington, even Oregon, and I think that a lot of people think that they are producing the grapes and the whole bit. They're getting the grapes from over here, though, aren't they?
There's more than 50,000 acres of wine grapes now in Washington, and all but about 100 acres are grown east of the Cascade Mountains. So I was actually just last week over in the Seattle area exploring some of these varieties that they grow in western Washington. And there's, like I said, there's less than 100 acres, and they're grape varieties such as, they're kind of hard to pronounce, Müller-Thurgau and Sigrebe and Madeleine Angevine. Over here we've got the classic French and German varieties, Riesling and Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, etc. And so this really is the prime grape growing region. So even though about half the wineries in Washington are west of the Cascades, almost all the grapes come from over here.
Yeah. All right, well, if you want to join our conversation, don't hesitate. 509-547 8726. So, do some people simply grow grapes for wine? Or you don't have to have a winery in order to grow grapes? And we've got two different groups, don't we?
Right, right. In Oregon, it's interesting. There's more estate grapes grown, so the grape growers will make the wine. Here in Washington, it's a lot different. There's a lot of large grape growers who sell their grapes to wineries. So, for example, we've all heard of St. Michel Wine Estates. They're the largest wine producer in Washington. They own Chateau St. Michel, Columbia Crest, 14 Hands, Snoqualmie, etc. They probably only grow fewer than 20% of their grapes. The rest of it they buy from grape growers that they've contracted in the Horseheaven Hills, the Yakima Valley, the Walnut Slope, and they use 2 out of every 3 grapes grown in Washington, and so they contract almost all the fruit that they get, or certainly a huge percentage of it.
Well, do we need to be growing more grapes to keep up with all this? What are we going to be able to keep up?
Well, that's an interesting question, because as of about 2 years ago, really the Washington wine industry ran out of red wine grapes, because St. Michel uses so much of it that they've actually taken some of their really low-end brands and they moved some of the production down to the Lodi area in the Central Valley of California, because first of all, it's expensive to grow wine grapes, and so you can't make really, really cheap wine here because of the quality of the growing areas. So they're actually having growers plant hundreds of acres every year to keep up with the demand. And in fact, Ted Basler, who's the CEO of St. Michel Wine Estates, he says if we don't continue to grow, at least another 10,000 acres in the next 5 years, we're going to lose a lot of market share to imports from Spain, from Germany, from France, from Australia. So
Argentina,
Chile,
yeah.
Or Uruguay. I mean, everybody's making wine now, and so there is an opportunity to grow. And we certainly have the water, which California is kind of hurting in right now. So there is a huge opportunity, I think, for Washington to continue to grow this industry.
Well, I've heard it described this way, that California has the quantity of wine production, but Washington has the quality. Is that fair?
Well, I think certain parts of California, that's certainly fair. So, for example, in the Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley, that area, they grow high quantity, modest quality, let's be polite, modest quality wine grapes. They grow, but it's really for the 2-buck chuck, the Franzia, the what we call the bottom shelf wines, the jug wines, the bag-in-a-box wines. But you get into Northern California, you get into Napa, you get into Sonoma, you get into Monterey, you get into Mendocino. Those areas are producing very, very high quality, some of the best in the world, and I would say that's where Washington sits, is with those types of areas.
Well, what kind of is there a certain kind of grape or a certain wine that we are becoming known for in this region of the state?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because that's one of the good things and one of the struggles that Washington has. We grow probably 40 different grape varieties on this side of the mountains, everything from Cabernet to Viognier. What we're known for is growing a lot of different high quality grapes. So Cabernet, Chardonnay, Riesling, Merlot, Syrah, those are all kind of the big 5 grapes that we grow here in eastern Washington. In Oregon, we think of Pinot Noir, and that's because that's 60% of what they grow. Napa Valley, we think of Cabernet because that's what they're known for. Washington doesn't really have a signature grape, but if there were to be a signature grape in Washington, it would probably be Cabernet. That's the number 1 grape right now. It's the highest priced wine. It's the best wine for this climate.
All right. Well, stick around. We have so many more questions. I want to tell you the number 1 question that I want to hear from Andy is, what does he spend for a bottle of wine that he enjoys on a typical evening? That's what we're going to ask him. That's coming up next. And you're listening to News Talk 870. Oh boy, we're talking about wine today. This is so much fun. I've got Andy Perdue here. Andy is basically, he and his partner, Eric Degerman, have Great Northwest Wine. So they spend their time writing, tasting, traveling, all about wine in the Northwest. So he's the right guy to be talking to about this. Andy, so how much do you spend, I want to know, on a bottle of wine? A typical, you pull it off the shelf and open it up for you and your wife. What would that be?
Oh, I would say, kind of depends on what we're having for dinner and the night of the week. And midweek, we might spend $15, $20, $25 for a bottle of wine.
Oh man, I want to come to your house.
Yeah,
I was.
if my in-laws are in town, which they were this last weekend for Mother's Day, then I get out a little bit better stuff. They did let me marry their daughter, so you might bring out the Reiniger or the Leonetti or something like that for them.
Well,
so.
that's very sweet of you. Well, we have so many great wines here, and yeah, what is our average price here in Washington? Is that about, it's probably about $13, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it'd probably be even a little bit higher than that. I mean, it's hard to say because, for example, Chateau Ste. Michelle makes 1.3 million cases of Riesling. They make more Riesling than any other winery in the world. And the average price on those wines is probably around $10. So that kind of skews things down. And 14 Hands, which makes some terrific wines up in Prosser, they're averaging, probably $10 to $15. So, so you're probably, probably that anywhere from $10 to $15, you're going to find a really great bottle of wine.
That's nice. All right, what are people, wine critics, people in the know, what are people around the country and around the world saying about Washington wines?
That's interesting because when I started writing about wine and judging wine, I judge all over the country. I would go down to California and let's say 15 years ago, and someone would hear I'm from Washington, and they would almost sort of pat me on the head and say, "Oh, isn't that cute that you guys think you're making wine?" Now, when I go down there, and I was just down there a couple of weeks ago at the Sunset competition down in Menlo Park, and people heard I was from Washington. They came up and said, "What's going on with Red Mountain? What's going on with Malbec? Hey, what's Ste. Michelle doing?" And they're really, really interested in what is happening here in Washington. They see it as this new frontier, as this exciting area. And we're actually seeing that with California wineries coming up here and opening their own operations here in Washington. So to me, it's an exciting time, and we've kind of gone over that hump of being kind of this cute little area to being something that's much more serious.
Are the wines from Washington earning medals? The way that wines are. I don't. What do you call it?
Well, certainly the accolades that we're
Yeah.
seeing from Washington wineries, whether it's the scores that you get in the major
Scores.
magazines such as Wine Spectator or Wine Advocate, very, very high. We've had many wines from Washington now earn perfect 100-point scores. It used to be only for those very top chateaux from Bordeaux, for example. In the big competitions in Southern California, there was just last week there was the Riverside International Wine Competition down in Temecula, which is right near the Mexican border. I think there were 24 gold medals won by Northwest wineries, and most of those from Washington. So we're seeing a lot of high respect for the reds and the whites from Washington State.
So we have a lot of wineries in the state of Washington. How many?
Well, estimates are about 850.
850.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
And that doesn't count second tasting rooms.
Yeah.
So, for example, Bookwalter in Richland, they have their winery here in Richland. They've got a tasting room in Woodinville. So that doesn't count as two wineries. It just counts as one winery and an extra tasting room.
So wine here in this area is also a big tourist draw. Do we have the other parts that go with that besides just going out to a tasting room or a vineyard and tasting the wine? I mean, do we have the hotels? Do we have places to eat? Do we have places to shop? Can we attract? What else do we need?
Well, that's an interesting question because I think I was actually on the Visitor and Convention Bureau board for several years, and so we saw those early on what was necessary, and a lot of the focus used to be on, and still remains on, sports marketing. But a lot of wine marketing is taking place now. And we certainly are seeing the hotels come in. We're seeing more of the locally owned restaurants, which is what wine tourists like to see. They don't necessarily want to go to a chain. And to me, what's interesting is a lot of the wineries are kind of taking that on. So, for example, if you go to Bookwalter or Barnard Griffin or Tigueris over there in South Richland, all three of them now have their own restaurants. And so someone can go and visit, they can have a glass of wine, they can have a great meal, and then they can go to their hotel, which is not far away. So we're starting to see this infrastructure come in for tourism, and tourism is really important because it not only feeds the wineries, but it feeds the gas stations and the grocery stores and the hotels and the restaurants and the wineries, of course. And then, best of all, at the end of the weekend, all those people leave and they get off our roads and they leave their money here and they go back to Seattle.
They leave their money here, that's great.
So,
Well, I've seen the cottage industry of music develop as well. We have a lot of people who maybe they work at Hanford or who knows where during the week, but on the weekends then they'll play their music at the wineries, and that just seems like a wonderful addition for us who live here day in and day out.
oh yeah, and we're seeing that, say, Col Solare or Kiona or any of these places on Red Mountain or here in the Tri-Cities or in Prosser, etc. So we're seeing music. I mean, there's a good friend of mine here is a spoken word poet, and he performs at these wineries, and I mean, he does some really cool stuff, and it's I think that, I mean, you and I have lived in this town a long time, and the wine industry has actually, I think, helped enhance the culture and the quality of life here in the Tri-Cities in certain ways, and certainly is with food and music and some of those things.
Well, you started out as a reporter there at the Tri-City Herald.
Yeah, I was a reporter. I was an editor for a long time. I was an executive there for 23 years.
What was your beat, though? What were you
Well,
writing?
I started out actually writing headlines and working on the copy desk, and then I kind of worked up into management, and then we started this wine magazine called Wine Press Northwest. So my beat really ended up being wine on top of, say, running the copy desk or running the interactive media division.
Well, how did you get interested in wine?
Well, I met my wife, and we got married in 1995, and her parents would come to town, so I had to find something for them to do, so we'd go wine tasting, because they had actually lived down near Napa Valley back in the 70s. So we'd take a wine touring, and that kind of kept everybody busy and kept everybody happy, and I started thinking, yeah, this is pretty interesting stuff. At the same time, Eric Degerman, my business partner, was doing the same thing. He'd gotten married, he would take his dad wine tasting when they came into town. And so we came up with this idea for the wine magazine kind of at the same time. He was working nights on the sports desk, I was working nights on the copy desk, and we talk about wine while we're waiting for the press to start.
That's unusual.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, so now where can we read your information, what you gather?
So Eric and I no longer work at the Tri-City Herald. We started our own business about 2.5 years ago. But every Wednesday in the Tri-City Herald, our syndicated column appears, and that actually appears in 21 newspapers. So if someone's reading the Wenatchee World, or the Spokesman Review up in Spokane, or the Everett Herald, or Tacoma News Tribune, all those carry our column. I also am the wine columnist for the Seattle Times now, and so that appears in the Sunday paper every week in the Seattle Times, and then of course on our own website, which is greatnorthwestwine.com.
What are you writing about?
Oh, we love to tell people's stories. I think the most interesting thing is how people got into the wine industry and what they're doing in the wine industry. And so we tell people stories about how they came to where they are, and how that wine, a particular wine, came to be, and you know what vineyards it came from, and what the sources were, and what the weather was like when that wine was made. Because wine is a snapshot of a moment or a season. So for example, last fall I had my 50th birthday, and so we opened 60 bottles of wine from 50 different vintages, and one of those wines was a 1964 Cabernet from Charles Krug, which is a Napa Valley winery. That was the year I was born, and those grapes were picked right about the time I was born, in
Wow.
October. And so I was holding that bottle and I was looking at it, and that was a snapshot in time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a story behind that. The people who grew the grapes, who picked the grapes, who made the wine, who nurtured it, who the person who bought that wine and kept it in his cellar for 40 years until he sold it to somebody else who sold it to me. I mean, there's this linear message with wine, and to me that's what's so interesting, and those are the stories that people like to hear.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we'll look for them. What do you think the level of wine knowledge is here in this region?
Well, I think it's certainly growing. I think because there's so many wineries now. I mean, if you live in the Tri-Cities, you can be at the South Richland wineries in 10 or 15 minutes from anywhere in the Tri-Cities. You can be out in Red Mountain within 15 or 20 minutes. You can go out to Prosser within 30 minutes. You can be in Walla Walla within an hour. And so there's a lot more reasons for our friends to come visit. And so we end up taking to wineries. When I say us, residents of the Tri-Cities. And so we're all learning more about wine. We're seeing the economic impact of the wine industry dramatically helping the Tri-Cities and the Bi-County area. So I think more and more people are learning about wine and appreciating it and embracing it and working in this industry.
What's the figure? Do you have an idea of what the figure is in millions of dollars that is supplementing the economy here?
Well, statewide, the Washington wine industry is worth about $11 billion a year.
11 billion.
And as far as private industry goes, it's below aerospace and forestry and fishing and technology, and then there's the wine industry. So it's one of the big 5 industries in this state. Here in the Tri-Cities, Benton County is actually the #1 wine producing county in the state. And part of that is because we've got producers like Chateau Ste. Michelle, Columbia Crest, Hogue, Hedges, Barnard Griffin, etc. So we've got a lot of wineries. So Benton County is the #1 wine producer. More than 5,000 jobs in the Tri-Cities are related to the wine industry. $250 million in tax revenue is generated just in Benton County alone by the wine industry, and those are in state and local taxes. So it's a huge impact. It's not Hanford size, but it's very important, and it's high quality, high paying jobs.
It's sustainable.
Oh, absolutely.
Beyond a federal allocation.
Yeah,
as it
exactly.
were.
Those grapes grow every year.
Yeah. What about the Wine Science Center? That's a new program now by Washington State University. What's going to happen there?
That's the Wine Science Center. In fact, I had a column a few weeks ago in the Seattle Times saying that this is the year of the Wine Science Center. In 25 years, we're going to look back on 2015, and we're going to say that was a seminal moment in the Washington wine industry, because that was the year that the Wine Science Center opened. And it's one of the biggest and most technologically advanced wine science centers in the world. It's bigger than UC
Wow.
Davis now. It's better than
Wow.
than anything going on in Australia. It's bigger and better than anything going on in Europe, because it's new. Now someone else will surpass that in a few years, when someone else in Geisenheim or UC Davis or Adelaide or someplace else builds a wine science center. But this is important. This is important to our community. It's important to the state wine industry. It's important to the U.S. wine industry. It's going to draw experts here who want to study wine, who want to learn about wine. It's going to help the next generation of winemakers, but it's also going to help the current generation of winemakers and grape growers by providing the research that they need to get even better. This is huge. This is a giant impact, and most of this was paid for by the industry. $5 million was actually the legislature kicked in a couple years ago, which is a pittance compared with the state tax dollars that the wine industry produces. So this is a huge thing, and when it opens, I think the grand opening is next month. The first classes will take place in August. This is giant. This is huge for our community.
Wow, so maybe we ought to get out there and when they have the grand opening and take a look at it.
Yeah.
I've just seen the exterior, so that would be really interesting. All right, here's my final question, and yeah, Andy, you know a lot about this. I mean, you can just talk and talk off the you could talk all day, couldn't you?
If you want me to.
All right, well, what do you think things are going to look like 5 to 10 years from now?
5 to 10 years from now. So right now we've got 50,000 acres of wine grapes growing here, primarily in eastern Washington. I think there will be 10,000 more acres of grapes. So I think it'll be 60,000 acres. I think we will firmly be a red wine state. I think red wine will dominate the landscape. I think we will be known for Cabernet as much as anything. I think Ste. Michelle will get even bigger, and they will produce other brands. But I also think that more California wineries are going to come here, such as Duckhorn. Duckhorn out of Napa Valley, very famous winery. They now have a winery on Red Mountain called Canvasback. There's going to be more and more of that as people recognize that Washington is not just the Wild West. It's not just the new frontier, but it's a very serious, very important region to grow wine grapes. So I see this as a huge boost for the wine industry. I believe that it's going to draw more restaurants. It's going to force the community to be higher end with hotels and with other amenities. So it's going to change the landscape of the Tri-Cities and the greater Mid-Columbia and frankly all of eastern Washington.
Well, I think that sounds like pretty good news.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And you're the bearer of it, and how fun for you today. Andy Perdue, thank you so much for coming to talk with us, and you're associated, it's your business, Great Northwest Wines, so I encourage anyone to look them up on the internet and check out what they have. Also check out their Wednesday column in all the papers. Appreciate you coming on today.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it was wonderful. You know, coming up next, we're going to talk about food trucks. You know, here we have Food Truck Friday. We're going to talk with some folks about how do we get more food trucks in the Tri-Cities area. So stick around. So, John McKay, we've had quite a bit of rain today. That's good news, though.
Yeah, it'll help, and if we can get a few of these to happen during the summer, especially in the mountains, it will offset some of the drought effects. So
That's what
it's
we
good.
need. That's what we need.
And I don't
All
have to run my irrigation.
There you go. I feel that way too. So we just spent a good bit of time talking about wine. Now we're going to talk about food. It is the lunch hour, and the people that are going to talk about food, yeah, are you smelling something? Yeah.
Yes.
They brought in some samples for us. First of all, say hello to Mary Lou Shea. She's here to talk with us about food trucks. Mary Lou works with the Pasco Specialty Kitchen. And you guys are the ones that put together this Food Truck Friday, aren't you?
We are. We are the ones that did that through the Downtown Pasco Development Authority. The Pasco Specialty Kitchen is one of their projects, and we developed it to help offset the cyclical nature of the mobile vending niche.
Well, I want to tell you thank you. I've only been there once, but I plan to be there more often, and I just think it's a fabulous idea. All right, tell us about it. If people have not been there yet, what happens on Food Truck Friday?
Food Truck Friday happens obviously on Fridays during the prime time lunch hour from 11 to 2. We have currently 8 vendors there, all of whom are offering a $4.95 lunch special. And one of the reasons we made that a requirement of the program is because there are a lot of worker bees out there like us. And a $10 lunch is a pricey lunch, so all of the vendors do offer a $4.95 cent special. But surprisingly, Christine and John, over 60% of the sales that we're seeing are actually for the regularly priced menu items.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us what some of the food items are that we could get on a Friday.
What am I smelling?
Yeah.
Well, let me start with what you're smelling.
Okay.
Thanks to Barbara and Vanis Daniels from Uncle Brothers Fish Fry, who are a longtime Pasco Specialty Kitchen client and one of our food truck vendors. You're smelling one of their wonderful samplers that has catfish that is specifically flown in from the Mississippi, and some wonderful hush puppies with a lot of the garnish toppings that you might like to try. So I hope that you enjoy this for your lunch today.
Oh, that's wonderful.
In addition to that, we have an Asian Mexican Asian American fusion called Fresh Out of the Box. We have Swampy's Barbecue. We have Wee Ice, which is super popular and gaining every day. We have Lulu's Homestyle Treats, and Lori Middleton makes everything from scratch. There are a number of city workers who shall remain unnamed, but who are always seen at her booth every Friday. And we have Anne's Best Creole, which is very popular, and we have Backyard Grub, which serves up your wonderful gourmet burgers and French fries.
Oh, yum.
Wow.
So something for
Yeah.
everybody.
So you could go 8 different weeks and beginning right now anyway. You could get 8 different items. You could get dessert. Oh, it's and the location, you know, people are familiar with it. Tell them where it's at.
It is at the Pasco Farmers Market
Yeah.
every week, so it's a convenient, consistent location. So it helps the vendors to park there, but it also helps our wonderful Tri-Cities and outlying community because they can always count on it being there from 11 to 2 every Friday at the Pasco Farmers Market in downtown Pasco.
All right. So I understand that you're going to be doing some kind of a training class, that we don't have enough food trucks here and you want more.
There aren't. As I was saying the other day, we've created this wonderful, beautiful monster, and it's lovely in nature. We just have to build the pipeline. There just aren't enough. I get a number of requests from different communities as far away as Prosser, and these are big organizations who want to book these food vendors. And while I am not their representative, they are privately owned businesses, I do pass those opportunities on to the vendors. We don't have enough. There's simply not enough food vendors, and there's not enough of a variety of mobile vendors. So we're looking to help offset that problem by offering a mobile vending university series of classes that's all about food truck wannabes. It starts May 29th through June 26th. And more of the details are available on our website. I do want to mention that subject matter experts will be there. People from labor and industry, the health department, some of the mobile vendors themselves will be talking about how do you function and build a successful business by streamlining operations, because that is critical. We'll also be talking about strategic marketing, and then just an overview, because the entry to this type of business is comparatively low. It can be as low as $10,000 for an espresso truck, and go as high as over $250,000. But compared to a Subway franchise, which is $263,000, it's a great way to break into the food business.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so this is, the timing is right. If people are even remotely thinking of this, they should be attending your class, and that's starting at the end of this month. What did you say, May 26th?
May 29th.
Oh, 29th,
They're
okay.
going to be on Saturdays from
Mhm.
10 to noon at the Pasco Specialty Kitchen, and the fee is a nominal fee, $225, and more information will be available to everyone who wants to participate on our website, on our Facebook page. Follow us on Pasco Specialty Kitchen.
Well, I also remember you saying before that you would have more vendors on the Friday event, except people are contracted to be parked at certain places during the week or on that Friday, so they can't leave those.
Exactly. There are a variety of conflicting business reasons why
Mhm.
we don't have more vendors at Food Truck Friday, and you're absolutely right, Christine. One of those is that some of the vendors, El Fat Cat Grill, which is an extremely popular mobile vending unit off of Edison, he has a standing contract, so he cannot participate in Food Truck Friday. The other reason is that the businesses don't want to disappoint their existing customer base,
Yeah.
right?
So maybe they need a second vehicle.
And isn't that, and that is where the growth, that is
Yeah.
where the incremental growth absolutely comes from. For an example, Kendra's, Walk and Roll, Kai and Mai Fengsaba, actually have a truck that is very, very popular out at Patel, Monday through Friday. And they've actually just received approval from L&I to build a second truck. So they are a prime example of how to run your business successfully, use social media effectively, and build your customer base and be successful.
So I know a lot of people sometimes feel, they see a food truck and their thought is, I just don't know about the safety regulations or the food service and everything. They have to meet the same requirements of any other food-related business. Isn't that true?
Absolutely true. In fact, the Benton Franklin Health Department has rigorous standards for any mobile vending unit, whether it's a taco truck, a pizza truck, a hamburger truck, a smoothie truck. All the licenses have to be in place, and they are very cognizant of the hygiene factor. And I know I was doing some research, and they used to be called roach coaches.
Yes.
In the older days. And
Mhm.
so now with health standards being what they are and the consumer being much more educated about what that requires, etc., all of the mobile vending units do require licensing, and they are inspected on a regular basis by the health department here. So they do a good job to keep it safe, keep it healthy, and keep it very, very high-end on the hygiene scale.
Mhm. Well, the tacos I have a couple of favorites, and they're just delicious. They're absolutely delicious, and they're incredibly cost-effective, I'd have to say. I mean, tacos that are $1.25 a piece or whatever, you can have quite a delicious plate of them.
Yes, the radio industry in this town runs on the food truck. the taco
Do
truck.
they?
Yes.
I like to hear that. That's awesome.
All right, what else is the Pasco Specialty Kitchen doing? I mean, what do you do? Is your whole thing, are you like a, what are those things called? An incubator? Yeah, is that what you are?
We are, absolutely. We are an incubator organization that helps small food businesses get off the ground. And so part of my job is to offer technical assistance, whatever that may look like, whether that's navigating the license process, which quite frankly can be overwhelming at times and very confusing, to providing marketing assistance, operations advice, doing a business plan, opening up retail or distribution channels with our network. So we are an incubator organization that is a nonprofit, and we are all about promoting small food businesses that are startups and helping them get started. We obviously supply the equipment and the facilities that would be exponentially expensive for small businesses, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment, and they can rent our facility for a modest fee and help them get their food business off to a great start. One of the other things that I would love to mention is an upcoming fundraiser for the Downtown Pasco Development Authority called Tucks and Trucks. It's going to be on June 3rd. It is going to be a blast. We are sending out invitations as well as inviting the public to come down. For $35, you'll get a map and you're able to sample all of the different trucks down there. We'll have dinner and dancing. We ask that while black tie is optional and the Tri-Cities isn't known for being super formal, we do ask guys to wear a suit. And the coup de grace is that we will be auctioning off the trucks.
Wow.
So if people will be having a live auction whereby people can actually bid on a truck to come to their family reunion, their birthday party, etc.
Oh, how fun. Well, that's great. So that's June 3rd.
That is June 3rd, a Wednesday, June 3rd from 6 to 9.
Okay, I want you to hand me one of those, because I'm going to move that over here so the folks in the studio here can check it out. We'll give you a critique of this food when we come back. In the meantime, this is News Talk 870, and it is May 13th. May 13th, it's lunchtime, and we are eating. Hopefully we don't have our mouths full. But John and I both got to taste some food that came today with Mary Lou. We got to taste some hush puppies and also some catfish. All right, John.
Very good. Incredible. I'm going to go ahead and talk with my mouth full.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
Delicious.
It's incredible.
Yeah, so I might, I know now what this is like, and this might be something that I order coming up on Friday. Mary Lou, remind us again, who is this vendor that we're eating?
Uncle Brothers Fish Fry, Vanis and Barbara Daniels, who are just wonderful. They harken back to deep Mississippi and Texas roots and do a wonderful job on their Fish Fry Food Truck Friday business.
Well, be sure and
Awesome.
tell them thank you from us, that
Yes.
we're really enjoying this. All right, what's the impact of Food Truck Friday? You've only maybe 4 weeks so far, or has it even been 4 weeks?
It actually, I know time flies. We started March 6th.
Okay.
So it's actually been a little over 8 weeks.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
8 weeks. And we are incredibly grateful and appreciative of everyone's support, from the media to the different people at the city to the community at
To the
large.
customers,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, oh my gosh, it's been over the top in terms of success. And while there's no fee or low fees to the vendors, the Pasco Specialty Kitchen doesn't take any percentage of sales. So the big news is that from an economic development standpoint, these vendors, these 8 vendors, have grossed more than $50,000 in sales from the local community.
Oh, good for them. Yeah.
And why is that important? So you think to yourself, okay, so what? Well, the key story about mobile vending is local, local, local. These are local businesses who live and work in our local community, who hire local employees, who source their food and supplies from local retailers, and who sell to local customers. So it's all about reinvesting into the local economy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, they are thrilled with the results thus far in our pilot program. And we are delighted because one of the key reasons for the program was to draw traffic to downtown Pasco. And we have certainly done that. We have done that. It also helps to support municipalities in terms of tax revenues. It contributes to other retailers who may be in and around the area, from the crowds that we draw to bringing more customers to their stores, their restaurants. So it's a great economic development story.
Pretty much a win-win for everybody. So what do you know about where customers are coming from? Are they mostly Tri-Cities people, or what?
Well, we have customer survey cards that we have out on the tables and at some of the trucks as well. And we are diligent about looking over those each week. We review them carefully. We pass along the cards to the different vendors, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent feedback. And we've had, the numbers are still coming in, but I can tell you that there are people who come from the Hanford area faithfully every week. They hike in from the area every week.
Wow.
Yeah, we have people who are tourists who have remarked that this is a wonderful event. We had a family that's just moved to the area, and they heard about it through the Tri-City Visitor Convention Bureau, and they came down to check it out. It's remarkable that not everyone who comes to Food Truck Friday is from Pasco. A lot of people are consistently coming from Kennewick, Richland, West Richland. There's people from Pendleton and Walla Walla, as well as Prosser, and even some from Yakima.
Well, I would think it would be a great Friday activity, coming up here maybe to do some shopping as well, and this is where the lunch hangout's going to be. It's a nice plan. I like it. And to know that it's really supporting back to the community, which is what your goal is, of course, and to get more traffic in downtown Pasco. Everybody's trying to do that. But I think you've hit on something really well. Maybe the folks in Kennewick and the folks in Richland could learn from this as well. Have something to draw people, a special event like this, and you're doing it on a weekly basis. So good for you.
Well, thanks. It's a huge team effort, of course, and there is plenty of opportunity for everyone to build this sector, whether it's Kennewick, Richland, Prosser, Walla Walla. Gut Grub is a new program that's starting up in Walla Walla, and I know they've reached out to a few of the vendors that we work with. We wish them
Grub?
It's,
I love that
do you
title.
love that?
Yeah,
It
yes.
has a fork right in the middle of a round something. And so
yeah.
they'll be doing that in downtown Walla Walla. Richland has, actually was the first to actually put a stake in the ground in John Dan Plaza. And while it's not necessarily a formal program like ours is, with marketing support and that type of thing, some of our Pasco specialty kitchen vendors, Northwest Sunset Grill and the Street Grill, are based there. And so there's room for everyone to get in on the wonderful business opportunity and help us grow it together as a community.
Mary Lou, it's so great to have you here. That's all right. We've got Food Truck Friday coming up this Friday, 11 to 2 in downtown Pasco. We are back in just a moment to wrap up the program, so stick around. This is News Talk 870. Oh my gosh, John, wasn't this fun today? We even had lunch catered.
It was a riot.
All right.
In a good way.
In a very good way. We got rain coming down for probably the rest of the day, some winds. I like the rain, so that works out fine as well. Coming up tomorrow, I've scheduled former Congressman Doc Hastings, and I'm really, really excited to hear what Doc has to say. He spent a lot of time representing all of us in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure he's got some stories. We'll have to test to see how willing he is to share some of those stories. He's kind of been out of that now for only about 4 or 5 months. His impact here in the Columbia Basin and Eastern Washington, certainly Hanford, has been fairly significant. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with Doc, and we'll be taking your questions and your comments. So I do hope that you will join us at that time. So Doc Hastings coming up then. And let me tell you just now, you can be thinking about it, because Friday, it's going to be all about Forgiveness Friday. We're going to talk about forgiveness and how that helps you. Hey, I've had a good time. I'll see you tomorrow at noon.